perennial wisdom that you're talking about. And if it hasn't become clear in the 30 years I've been teaching it, with some 250 charts going through the different shrutis and smritis and scriptures of India, then like I say, I don't know what can make it clear to you in this day and age, in this Kali Yuga. The darkness of ignorance just has to fade away, and the more you get closer to the light, the more it will. So come closer. You have to get close to the fire to get warm. See? So the fire of the Dharma, the fire of wisdom, Jnana Agni, see, is there. And you must subject yourself to it. So he says, tamas is stale, tasteless, overcooked, impure food. Rajas food is bitter, sour, saline, hot, pungent, and dry. But sattvic food gives vitality, energy, vigor, health, and joy. And there's that teaching on the 5 defects of food, which doesn't say a lot about organic or non-organic again, because probably back then they didn't have pesticides and they didn't have such problems as non-organic to consider. But whatever the case may be, this goes more to the point of the mind and the food in the mind, you see, and how it conduces to perfect health or to poison in the bloodstream. In other words, there's poor soil or lack of nutrients. There's been a flood, or there's been a drought, or there's been too much sun and not enough rain. So the food's going to be affected by that, and that's a defect in food. The second one is selfish purpose while harvesting. The people who plant it and harvest it are wanting to make money, so automatically there's an imperfection in your food. There's a lack of awareness when processing the food. That is, what we're saying here is the mind isn't being kept in a high state during all these phases of food. How can you expect humanity to keep a high state of mind all the time, you see? But it's an ideal that we could strive for. We're trying to do it, so why can't everyone else try and do it? Because it impinges on the overall health of the collective mind, you see. Cosmic mind is no problem. Collective mind, individual mind, that's where the problems are kicking in. Then impure mood while preparing the food. That's why a lot of people, I was saying it at the breakfast table just the other day with the students around, is that a lot of people like to cook and prepare their own food. So they can say the mantra over it, and they can be very quiet while they cook it. They don't have any distractions, as few as possible, and therefore the food will remain sattvic. The sattvic content can be brought out of it and then brought up the spine in this way, see, which we will get to in a minute. So impure mood while preparing. So you have to be aware of that in the food that's served to you in restaurants, and by visiting guests, being in a family that you've been invited to a dinner as a guest or something. You have to be aware of these imperfections are there. Maybe before you got there, it was a beautiful spread. You got there as a guest, but in the kitchen, the husband and wife were having a huge fight while they were preparing the food, you see. So they weren't very conscious, and that anger of that argument has gotten into the very vibration of the food, and then you're eating it. And no matter how beautiful it looks, you go home and go, oh. If you're sensitive, you feel heavy and so forth. Well, those are just some of the things that will happen, and some of them are unavoidable, but the purpose of this teaching is that you can counteract these impurities with mantra and with higher state of mind. You can purify your food and should purify your food as you take it. The last one there is failure to bless and consecrate. So I was saying the other day, even in restaurants, if we're together in a restaurant and we say our mantra and think about the purity of the food, you see, right there in the restaurant, it doesn't matter who's looking. So maybe these other people will see that and get interested in the principle of food in a deeper level. They won't just eat and run, or talk and eat, or gossip, or yell and laugh, and not even have any gratitude for the food, or any idea of what it means to their energy, their prana, and what it means to their thought process. That's really all I wanted to show about this chart, because that's the clarity of food, but just enough to know too that it will give rise to clarity of mood and clarity of mind and then clarity of spirit. Of course, if you come into this body, with wisdom, not lack of wisdom, but wisdom. And you realize that rebirth, that all diseases are in the mind and you can avoid them. You're a master of that, more or less. Then, of course, clarity of spirit is already with you when you arrive, called past masters, avatars, Ishvarakotis, Vibhutis, Bodhisattvas. There's a list of people who come into the body with these matters already under control. The rest of us have to maybe come in with some of them, and then we have to acquire the rest. Or maybe we come in with none of them, and we have to keep holy company and begin to acquire them. See, all different levels of understanding in different people's minds, different karmas, different impressions in the mind, and different routes to take. But here's a route that's tried and true and set in the ancient teachings, you see. Doesn't really vary much, teaching of food, from yoga to Kundalini yoga to Vedanta to Tantra. It doesn't really vary much. These are just tried and true axioms of food. You see. Gita, Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir. I mean, what's he saying there? Brahmarpana, you make an offering consciously, Havir, into the fire of your body. In the songs I could sing you how that's. What to speak of Monochalo, Monopoli Bhajakali, Icha Hoi Torje Achari, Guru Data Mahamantra, Divaneshi Japakore. So whatever you do, wherever you go, use your mantra over your food and offer the food into the sacred fire of your body and reap the positive effects of that. Again and again and again. You don't just do this once and say, it didn't work. You see, or it worked a little. But you keep this up. That's why I chanted that today, Shravanayapi Buhubir Yona Labhyaha. And why we chanted Om Satyena Labhyas Tapasa Hesa Atma. You keep up this regimen constantly, you cultivate it constantly until it becomes your habit around food, your good habit around food. And then watch its effects over years. It'll kick in and you'll wake up one morning like Ram Prasad and say, my ignorance is gone, gone, utterly gone. So, food, mood, mind, spirit, I wanted to make another reference to that chart. A lot of the teachings from Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. That's why we sing to him, for instance. I was thinking, when you talk about Sri Krishna, you just feel like singing, you see. So oftentimes, if you talk about the high type of food that you arrive at, then you would maybe want to sing something like this out of the Bhagavad Gita. Vasudeva Sarvam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Ekameda Dvaitiyam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Suridam Sarva Bhutanam, Vasudeva Sarvam. The divine is all pervasive. Nothing exists but that one. To thee, O Eternal One, our love is pure and wholehearted. Vasudeva Sarvam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Vasudeva Sarvam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Atmani Vishwadarshanam, Vasudeva Sarvam. Nothing exists but the one. You are all pervasive. You appear as the creator of the divine universe, but you are beyond creation, preservation, and destruction. And on the slokas out of the Gita tell us, you see. So you think about the Gita and Sri Krishna, then you can't help but put it into music and sing about it. And your lyrics are food, you see. And they're food to the minds of others who are acclimatized to that level of wisdom as food. Again, then in the remaining 10 minutes here before we take our break, let's look into this chart that we took and that I created for this Upanishad at the very beginning of our study of the Taittiriya. There you see a little representation of the spinal cord. I was telling the people in prison the other day when I was teaching Vedanta to the men there, imagine you just have this big tube, you see, and it's inside, it's cordoned off into like 6 levels, but at the base of that tube is hollow, you see, and at the base of that tube some obstruction is there, like a cloth has been spread over it and nailed or tacked to the tube itself, and you can't get through it, you see. So people's consciousness can't get through or to their higher centers. They're down there in the levels of eating, drinking, and sex life, and hair salons and various things, you see. They're not thinking a higher thought even by accident, Sri Ramakrishna said. So the aspirant espies that in his culture or in her family or in the ancestors, in churches, in temples, vain thy search, finds that there and wants to penetrate through it, you see. So sharpens the intellect and pierces through that Brahma Granthi. You see. Brahma Granthi, so it's like a barrier right there at the foundation of that tube, you see, and then can get up to these higher centers. See. There's another barrier between the third chakra, which is right there at the vital level. That's heaven, that's the third chakra, Manipura, that's the gut, as it were, in physical terms. And the heart, there's another called Vishnu Granthi, and you want to penetrate through that, you see. All this time you're getting energy from food and using it, right? With the breath, with meditation, with study of scripture, with worship of God. You're using the 4 yogas to course this energy up the spine. It's not something you can gauge or look at with an electron microscope. You see, it's something that you have to feel over time that is happening to you. You have to feel your consciousness getting elevated over time and take note of it and affirm it. You see. And affirmation isn't enough, Sri Ramakrishna said. You're going to have to follow it up with spiritual disciplines. That affirmation has to become absolutely clear and certain to you via your own experience. It can't just be, a thought in the mind that you believe in. It has to be converted into faith. Beyond mere belief is faith. But sometimes people don't even have mere belief. So they haven't even penetrated that lower barrier yet, you see. So if they can come up and penetrate that Vishnu Granthi, they can get to the heart, and then to the throat, and the third eye. Now between the third eye and the crown chakra, there's called the Rudra Granthi. Very, very difficult for consciousness to penetrate to this high level. We know Sri Ramakrishna used to say, my consciousness, fully awakened, ran a boat race between these 4 chakras. You see, ran a boat race, he said. Very nice, nicely put. So he was coming in and out of these centers all the time. He used to say his natural tendency was to be at the highest center, formless. But sometimes he had a desire to see God in human form, so he'd come down to the heart. And he used to use a story about that. He said, the rich man has this big mansion. See? So you go looking for him. Many rooms, you see. But if you knew him, you know that he usually likes to hang out in his study with his pipe, kicking up his heels and enjoying the parlor, as it were, you see. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna said, this is the parlor where I can see humanity, you see, the devotees, basically, because he wouldn't go any further down unless he wanted to help the fallen and the lowly. But he wanted to see the devotees, he'd come down to the heart, then get in his boat of prana and ride back up, you see. Naturally high awareness. He used to call it a hot air balloon. If you cut all the bags of lust and greed and envy and jealousy and pride and shame and grief and delusion, the 6 passions and the 8 fetters and the 5 kleshas and the 9 antaryayas, if you've cut those sandbags off, then the hot air balloon will come up by itself. And that's that upward moving prana, right? It wants to go up, but you're keeping it down. What's the matter with you? See? So let your mind rise to these high levels, these high atmospheres. So you have that tube, you see, going up the middle. Just give you a brief explication of it just now. And then you have these two Ida and Pingala nerves going around it like this, you see, as it goes up. Sometimes they're called male, female, Shiva, Shakti, sun, moon. You see, they're given different words or assignments in the scriptures. And they're the upward moving prana and the downward moving prana. By the time prana has reached a state where, as we took in the chart last week, where it's awakened, then it's turning into psychic prana, then you're aware of the Sushumna, the Ida, and the Pingala nerves. And you're, as they say metaphorically in the songs, you're visiting the most remote retreat possible. See? You can go to the Himalayas and the tip of the Ganges, or the tip of the Everest, or source of the Ganges, or any other holy place, but the most remote pilgrimage is inside here in this river, where these three rivers meet. The Ganga, the Yamuna, and the Saraswati. You see, would be like the Sushumna, the Ida, and the Pingala. Or if you're just really Western and European, you'd call them the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. You see. Whatever, you're taking a sailing journey, and this is going inside to discover inner worlds. Christ said, "My Father's mansion has many chambers." But then he followed it up by saying, "They're of rest, they're of sojourn, and they're of peace." So people going into his Father's mansion who are having suffering, hellish experiences, and so forth, they haven't reached the Father's mansion yet. But in the Father's mansion, there are realms of peace, realms of joy, and realms of sojourn too. So you're moving, your consciousness is moving in the Father's mansion to these different locations. Each one of these centers has hundreds and thousands of worlds in it, just like this physical ether has hundreds and thousands of worlds in it. So this is a inward ascension of the free soul, and I'll have more to say about it after our break. Thank you for your kind attention. Welcome back to the second half of our penultimate class on the Taittiriya Upanishad. We intend to bring this wonderful document to a close in our study tomorrow morning at our class, which will be live streamed and live at 9:30 usual time. And at present, we've just worked our way through these fifth and sixth lessons of the third and final chapter of the Taittiriya Upanishad, and we're presently speaking about the cave of the intellect, or that space in the heart, a thumb's width to the left of the breastbone, sometimes they say. Actually, anatomically, there is a space in the heart there. They say that in the actual anatomical heart, there's a empty space there. They don't know what it's for. So it's kind of symbolic for all of us to think of a spaceless space inside of that, because we think in terms of five ethers in Vedanta and in India, not just one. That's really limiting things if you think only in terms of physical space and then forget that there's a space of your ancestors and a space of the deities and a space of the rishis and the luminaries and so forth. That's a little bit what's being referred to here too in this diagram. Another example of the seven chakras, with each with their own seed bijam in them this time, but more pertinent to our understanding how food gets digested. There's that mention of ether there. The body is the ether. See, is this that great soul whose body is the ether and whose sport is the life force. So this prana that's flowing through, that the food gets sublimated and helps make you aware of this movement inside of you, in and out, whether it be waking, dreaming, deep sleep, or birth, life, death, how the soul moves and shifts its consciousness in and out of different sets of senses and three different bodies and so forth, but also many different lokas too, the chambers of my father's mansion, as we were saying before the break. So your consciousness can shift about those, and it does shift around them, but sometimes not so consciously. Like I was saying, if you were to shift from dream vision into deep sleep, then, and if you had this chakra open, you see the third eye they call it, then you would be able to see all the seeds for creation there, the seeds for what we call projection. And withdrawal too, because they say the in-breath is life, is birth, and the held breath is life, and the out-breath is death. So even inside of one breath that you're taking, everything is reenacting on a microcosmic level, or you might say macrocosmic level if you want to relegate that to the outer worlds. This subtle space inside, the microcosm, which is also existing in these kinds of cycles, in threefold cycles, like, say, past, present, and future, three phases of time, and that kind of thing. So these triputis, or these triple teachings that all connect to one another, gives the mind, at this level, the intellect, you see the throat and the third eye combination together, gives it all the food that it needs to digest higher wisdom and to live on that. It begins to live in a higher level. Thoughts are always on God, or on high philosophical precepts, or also coming down to lower levels and solving the problems of people who don't have that access to those higher states of consciousness, like the bodhisattvas do and the jivan muktas, living liberated souls. So whose body is the ether, whose sport is the life force, who is felicity of mind. So you have that peace of mind that passes all understanding, he said, right? Wasn't this talking about having a hut and a wife and some children and fish on the table and nets outside all ready to fish the next in a boat and so forth? That kind of outer peace, but that can get ruffled by a bunch of Romans walking in and taking everything away. But basically, you've got this inner peace, or this inner felicity, where your mind is always posited in the eternal rather than in the changing, the mutable, or in the infinite rather than in the finite. And that, of course, is going to then, as the Katha Upanishad says, peace belong to them and to none else. In about 6 or 7, 8 slokas in a row, that's the ending of the sloka. Peace belong to them and to none else. So it's this inner life that is possessed by these higher, more illumined souls that gives them peace that passes all understanding. First, it gives them peace that allows them contentment rather than happiness and sorrow, and then it gives them a peace that passes all understanding. It goes even beyond into this felicity of mind. And who is also endowed with peace, we were just saying. And finally, whose essence is truth, and that would be at that crown chakra called the Sahasrara, or 1,000-petaled lotus, speaking metaphorically. So this basic view of the 3 main nerves, or nadis they're called. When we say nerves, we know there are lots of nerves running through our physical body, but there are also lots of nerves or passageways running in our subtle body that get us into dream and back to waking. Those are also passages where our consciousness is flowing through, and inside of every physical nerve there's 100,000 subtle nerves, they say, and consciousness is flowing along them. And if you could see that with this eye open, if thine eye be single, you shall know the truth. If you could actually see that in your meditation, then you'd be aware of the 1,000 souls that have already passed from the body since I started speaking, you see, at this half. And also other thousands that were born into the body through different centers, through these nerve passages. That's how the transmigrating soul transmigrates. That's how it moves. And we're so attached to the physical that we don't know of any other way to move, you see. We don't know the movement of our thought, the movement of our prana, the movement of our intelligence in streams of particles. We only know atomic particles, not atmic particles. So all of that is inner life. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say, if you have a court case, go to a lawyer. If you have an illness, go to a doctor. But if you want to know about spiritual life, who are you going to call? You got to go to a person who focuses on spiritual life and those truths alone, and has some mileage, some spiritual mileage under their belt. Now there's a nice quote about this too. The hollow canal called Sushumna, that's that main nadi running up, it's instanced or represented by the physical spine, but it's not the physical spine. Some people actually take things so literally when you tell them that you have a spine with lotuses in it. They're thinking physical, see. But it's in your next body. You know, it's in the next sheath. It's in the next level of awareness, or the next dimension. Don't think about outer space and aliens when I use the word dimension, please. We're talking about inner space that exists hand in glove. And if it didn't, you wouldn't be feeling your ancestors right now, and they wouldn't be feeling you, or you wouldn't be having this connection, deja vu style or omniscient style, to things that are happening to others that you love in different parts of the world, but also in different worlds. That's because the Annamaya Kosha and the Pranamaya Kosha are so tucked up against one another, hand in glove like that. And that prana is the connecting point between them. That's why you dream about them, because you're flowing along prana avenues and back to your body, you see. And the breath is, again, one way of becoming aware of that connection, you see. You practice it until you get that moving, and then you can detect its movement. You have to get something moving before you can detect it. You see, if it's just all arrested, as he said here, if the prana is arrested, or if it's sometimes on, sometimes off, you can't see where it is, you see. Sort of like watching a slug, you see. It's not moving. You look away and, hey, it moved an inch, you see. So you have to become aware of the movement of those kinds of things, subtle things. So the hollow canal, called Sushumna, lies between the 2 arteries of the upper palate and the nipple-like growth that hangs down between them. It passes out of the crown, where the root of the hair is made to part. Sagittal suture, they would call that. Opening the skull in the center, this is the gate leading to the Supreme Lord. some nice metaphor there, but also some nice wisdom that comes out of the Upanishad. I believe that's Taittiriya Upanishad. Now the only thing left to say, I mean, some of these are references and they have to be experimented with and experienced. And just like you experience things outwardly, you're going to have to shift your consciousness inwardly and spend a little time inside of yourself to begin to see such things. Somebody was sitting here in this room 2 or 3 days ago saying, I started meditating like you said, and all of a sudden I'm having these very interesting experiences happening inside of me. And I told him, yeah, the Upanishads talk about that too. You see fireflies, you see maybe a opening of a kind of a cylindrical light, you see, and you start hearing sounds like a kettle drum or a flute or a piccolo, kind of, in your consciousness. And so sights and sounds, basically, Shabda and Jyoti, or Jyoti and Shabda, are occurring to you as the denseness or darkness of your mind's layers break apart. Sometimes that'll happen naturally, like in a high dream, or because you come upon something in life that reminds you of something powerful. But then those things go away. Sri Ramakrishna said, the blue lotus is so delicate that it'll open when the sun comes out. But if a cloud passes in front of the sky, it's so sensitive it closes immediately and won't open till the sun comes again. So he's talking about some people having samadhi-like experiences, even ordinary people, but they can't hold on to them. As soon as the slightest shade or shadow or negativity or karma or bad word or something that happened at work goes on inside of them, then they'll lose that light immediately. So that's why we try and spend more and more time, give more and more energy, prana, into our centers, into these higher centers, and maybe give up some attachments that are keeping us in the lower centers. Sri Ramakrishna in his time talked about a huge bridge made of chains. There was like 2 big chains, and then a bunch of chains connecting those 2 chains, which are smaller, and it was across this big river, probably across the Hooghly River, and elephants and every other manner of conveyances would cross that bridge all day. So the weight of all of that caused a few of these chains to snap, you see. But the engineers are going, oh, that's okay, there's still like 5,000 chains up there connecting the 2 main chains. We don't have to go up and replace those ones that have snapped. Well, it's not engineering Sri Ramakrishna is referring to, of course. It's how many chains we have binding us to lower mind and to body and so forth. And we snap a few of them and we think we're better. You see, oh, I gave up drinking coffee finally, you see, or I gave up cigarettes, you see. Or better yet, maybe you'd say, I gave up negative thoughts, you see. I just got rid of brooding entirely and saw it was the worst waste of time ever, and why should I have my mind, which is my mind, be out of my control and taking its own route when it's painful to me, you see. Painful to my soul. My mind is not my soul, so why is my mind causing this problem? So, where was I? I was about to tell you that if we have these 2 kinds of representations to look at, and as far as images, and we also have a vision of them in our mind, then we can make progress. But you might want to know how a person who has made all the progress necessary to transcend lower considerations feels, and that's what Trishanku says here. He says, I am the stimulator of the tree of the universe. My fame is high, like a mountaintop. Elevated to the most holy, I am the excellent immortal being, as he is in the sun. I am the power, the wealth refulgent with divine intuition. Imperishable and immutable I have become. So, right out of this Upanishad in the first chapter, this great rishi called Trishanku, how he felt, or how he feels now that ignorance has died, and he's living at this very high state of awareness. He's the wealth refulgent, so therefore, he's also the abundance of food that he can eat and give to others and so forth. Everything has become food to him, as is the theme running through this Upanishad. So I think we've looked at that chart, or re-looked at it, revisited it, if you remember it from before, inward ascension of the free soul and how it moves in. A sort of combination of the wisdom of the Taittiriya Upanishad with the Kundalini Yoga system, and I really didn't finish my thought in my first half when I said that there is this romance, as it were, this connection between Vedanta and Kundalini Yoga, and it has to do with one Upanishad called the Yoga Kundalini Upanishad, which is one of the 108 Upanishads, which shows you that Vedanta not only concurs with but also is enamored of this process of awakening of Kundalini Yoga in us, Kundalini Shakti rather. And Sri Ramakrishna said in one grand statement, there will be no spiritual awakening or progress without the awakening of Kundalini Shakti. It just will not happen. See? So you'll say that you must connect yourself to her, see, and I'm going to have to do that by food, prana, mantra, storing up some power, and ingesting food at all levels, including the wisdom scriptures. And then I might come upon the mother of wisdom if I do that, you see. And she's sort of waiting, beckoning, saying, Asato ma satgamoya, tamaso ma jyotirgamoya, mrityor ma amritamgamaya. Go beyond death to life, go beyond darkness to light, go beyond lower truth to higher truth. So she wants you to move beyond this state of lower knowledge into higher knowledge. She's waiting for you there, as your own self. Now, that's about the cave of the intellect. In the next 2 or 3 lessons, that is 7, 8, and 9, they're very repetitive. We'll read one of them. One should not disrespect food. That should be observed as a pious rule. Life indeed is food. Body is the eater of food. Body is set in life. Life is set in the body. Therefore food is established in food. That one who contemplates food on all levels is established in food and becomes firmly established. Next lesson it said, one should not reject food, should observe that as a pious rule. Now takes up water indeed as food. Fire is the eater of food. Fire is established in water. Water is established in fire. Therefore food is established in food. Next sloka, I'm not reading them all because we took them last weekend. One should observe abundant food. Let that be observed as a pious vow. The earth indeed is food. Ether is the eater of food. Ether is established on earth, and earth is established on ether. Therefore food is established on food. That one who knows this contemplates food, which is based on food, and becomes firmly established in it. So those 3 slokas are very repetitive, but you see how they're shifting their perspective in each one. First it's around earth, and then it's around water, and then it's around fire. Well, then I thought we probably should revisit this chart of yogic connections. You probably haven't seen it for some time, but in this regard you have this father of yoga, Patanjali, giving us his version of what Taittiriya Upanishad is actually saying. He wants you to be even more specific about it like that. These verses, you could say to us, are a little bit esoteric, a little bit abstruse. We hear the words, we understand a little bit, but how to get to the deeper meaning of it and put them into practice. Well, Father of Yoga is not leaving any stone unturned. He's giving us with no uncertainty how to connect these and the reason how you should do it in this beautiful chart that I fashioned by wisdom from the Yoga Sutras. That's called Patanjala or Raja Yoga or Eight-Limbed Yoga, Dhyan Yoga sometimes, Yoga of Meditation. So that's one of those 4 main yogas. Now he says all of these things are alambanas. And you can see how food is throughout them. The 5 elements, food is made of the 5 elements. There's some water, there's some earth, there's some air, and so forth, in everything you eat. The 5 active senses, also a kind of food. Gyanendriyas, the cognitive senses, the tanmatras, which are the 5 subtle elements, that's like air, earth, fire, water, and ether in your dream state. You have subtle worlds inside, made of these 5 elements. So it doesn't just end at the physical, and then nothing else exists, you see. But you have to go back to your subtle body, and that's why in India they've been teaching their children for thousands of years that you have more than one body. And the 2 of these are subtle and inner, causal, and you have to know about them. If you want to go from birth to death and death to birth without being dragged by the hair screaming, you want to go from birth to death and death to birth as a realized soul, then you're going to have to know very well your dream state and your deep sleep state, or the subtle body and the causal body that you move through. Naturally tonight, but unconsciously, as far as your memory is concerned, you don't remember being there. You go into deep sleep and 25 minutes experience bliss and come out refreshed for 24 hours, but you don't remember what you experienced there. Basically, mind and ego with all its brooding and all its considerations, its concerns, its responsibilities, its duties, its worries, was gone in deep sleep for a while, and that refreshed you, you see. You could put it that way. Anyway, these are, as you know, the kind of the famous 25 or 24 or sometimes 26 cosmic principles they put together. And Father of Yoga took those, they were called tattvas, and he assigned them to them the word alambana. Alambana means a point or a station for meditation. So he wants you to take each of these and meditate on them. That's your yogic practice as far as connecting goes, which was the very first teaching in the Taittiriya Upanishad, was connections. I'll re-show that chart tomorrow. So he says, utilizing the supports, there are supports for meditation. So you just can't take the 5 elements for granted. Otherwise you'll start polluting the universe. You can't just take the 5 senses for granted. Otherwise you'll start lending them to passions and imperfections and causing karma for you and others. You can't just take your dream state for granted and so forth. He wants you to use them as supports and stabilize the mind field by meditating upon them. From the grossest magnitude inward to the subtlest principle. Let the yogi focus upon what is agreeable then, observing it all in waking, dreaming, and deep sleep states with detachment. Now, if you had some very powerful things happen to you in your meditation or in your dream, you observe them with detachment. You know, my own metaphor about that is a man came out of the woods, lost for days, hungry, thirsty, hadn't seen sign of humanity for weeks, almost dead. And he came out of the woods onto a road, and he was so happy, and he saw a sign there that said, civilization 11 miles. And so he was so happy to see that, he grabbed onto the sign and never let go. So he never made it back to civilization, you see. And that's what we do with these so-called impressive and important experiences we have. And therefore, nobody goes on to enlightenment. They get caught with these little tiny insights, and see. And maybe they'll even build a business around them. Put up a crystal ball. Say, oh, I saw this and that, you see. Or get out the tarot cards, you know. Make money off it, whatever. So, but instead of going on in spiritual life, they'll get attached to the occult, or to the sensational, or to the mystery mongering, or to the spiritual ego, or pseudo-spiritual ego. You want to move inward, always go forward into the depths of what these mean. So, Father of Yoga is trying to get you to do this. Okay, now that's pretty much the first quarter of this chart on top. Those boxes there show you the 5s. This is called quintuplication process, and that's how consciousness gets in and out of the body, by 5s. It's a good way of understanding it, and it also takes away your weak and feeble excuse of saying, this is too complicated. See? You show the 25 cosmic principles and people say, that's too much to do, you see. Well, it's just earth, air, fire, water, and ether, and tasting, touching, hearing, smelling, and seeing, that's not too much, you see. Take those 10 and put them in your dream state, that's not too much. If you need a further aid, then think of them by fives, and then meditate on them, you see. So what comes next is the actual connections that are of most import. Kind of the inner core of the teaching is that earth you connect to excretion. That is, this one of these elements you're connecting to, one of the active senses. And then water you're connecting to procreation. And follow me down. Locomotion to seeing, handling to feeling, speaking to hearing. So now you've connected 5 to 5. And the teaching you're being given as you do that is that all of these came out of these. And these 10 have come out of this. And these 15 have come out of that. And those 20 have come out of the mind. Now you know how everything got projected. In other words, one of the things you know is that it didn't get created at all, and it's not going to get destroyed. It's cycling, eternally cycling. And when you find out that you're on a merry-go-round like that, you want off. See? And you need a Buddha to come, 550 years before Christ, and tell you, you can get off the merry-go-round of birth and death. I've done it, you can do it. You can do it. So, if you want it to go deeper, you connect earth to excreting to smelling, water to procreating to tasting, fire to locomotion to seeing, air to handling to feeling, ether to speaking to hearing. And you know that the first 10 came out of those 5. So the senses have some power. See, if God wants to see, then he'll give you eyes. If consciousness wants to hear, then ears will form. And when ears form, then ether is possible. See. Now, usually we're looking at this, the cart before the horse. You see, Descartes said, I think, therefore I know, or I am. But actually Vedanta says, I am, therefore I think. So before all of this came consciousness. So consciousness, as far as we're concerned, in the 24 cosmic principles, pretty much starting at mind. But of course you're going to have to account for where the mind gets everything. Deep sleep or unmanifested prakriti. That's where it's getting everything. It's taking seeds that already exist and that are eternal and turning them into objects. It just takes a trickle-down process to do that. Your book is first, an Upanishad that came from the rishis. It's in their mind. They never wrote it down. See? They never wrote these down until much, much later. So they're all in their heads, right? So that's the eternal book, you see, and it's in their consciousness first, and then later on it became a text on parchment or papyrus or whatever, you see. So that sort of illustrates even right there that all knowledge exists within you first, and then it trickles down into an object called a book later. Well, that's an obvious fact, but when you put it together, it's more marvelous and more wonderful and more illuminating to know that everything came out from the mental process as projection via vibration. If you're looking at the atomic particle, that's the grossest vibration, you see. It's the furthest out you can go. You're taking the most external thing, an object, and you're looking at its internal principles, you see. And you find particles vibrating at a billionth of a second, changing so fast that they don't even have a life. And so now you're sitting on particles, basically. You're made of particles, see. That is the assumed you, the body. Everyone thinks the body is their self, right? Oh, I'm hungry. Oh, I'm thirsty. Oh, I'm not happy, you see. Talk about pretty much the body and the emotions. So, anyway, my point being, as you connect each of these, you'll want to keep the teaching in mind that there is a source. This is called utpatti. That means origins. You're searching for the origins of everything. Now, I might jump the gun here and tell you that there is no origin to anything, but that's much later you find that out. If you haven't made the connections yet and someone tells you there's no origin to anything, then you're up a creek without a paddle, probably without a boat. But if you find out after you've made these connections that everything is originless, then you begin to understand deep sleep, samadhi, and transcendental consciousness, you see. So if we take it further, earth goes to excreting, to smelling, to odor. Water goes to procreating, to tasting, to flavor. Locomotion to seeing, to visibility, to luminosity. Handling to feeling, to tangibility, to homogeneity. Speaking to hearing, to audibility, to all pervasiveness, all coming out of the 5 elements. So you meditate on earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and you connect them to your active senses, to your cognitive senses, then to the subtle senses in dream tonight, and in meditation, and then finally to your fourfold mind. And mind then will be able to approach intellect. That's why you learn the 5 sheaths, so that, it makes it a little bit more simplified, doesn't it? Body, energy, mind, intellect, and ego. Well, that's pretty easy. I'll just use those 5, you see. But here's how the father of yoga in about 140 BC solidified this early yogic teaching into a system that correlated with the early Sankhya Yoga and with Shaivism and with other systems that were using the 5 the 24 cosmic principles. 25 if you add in God's mind, because you're going to want to collect the mind intellect to the cosmic mind. See? There's a quote there. Let's take it right now. Wisdom samadhi occurs via the process of gross thought to subtle thought, culminating in the indescribable state of I amness. In Abhava Yoga and Mahayoga, wherein one begins to see the blissful self, the alambanas are absent. Thus they are to be transcended in deep meditation. So you see these senses and these objects and everything go away as you go deeper into your consciousness. You're just not thinking of it as deeper into your consciousness. You're thinking of it as your imagination, or you're thinking of it as figments of this and that, wisps of thought, but you're not actually connecting it to these inner principles so that you can experience it as another level of your consciousness. So those are where those connections, which the Taittiriya Upanishad has been making for us, are so important. Now, that's a big bite to chew, but it's an excellent system. I mean, there are so many things left unsaid. If I started meditating on water and I found my meditation ended in fear, then I might have come across a lifetime where I drowned. And that will explain why one dog likes water and one dog doesn't, you see. Or one person wants to go see the ocean, one person doesn't want to go anywhere near it. Maybe went down in the Titanic, you see. Doesn't want to go anywhere near a boat or an ocean again. So all of these hidden fears and hidden doubts and karmas that go with them are all of a sudden, opened up to you. And you know the causes for the effects, and you're still suffering the effects without knowing the cause. So you face off with the brutes, the demons, and you clarify it. And first thing you would probably say, I died in the Titanic. See? But wait a minute, I'm still here. Wouldn't it? Doesn't it prove you have an immortal soul that's not the body, that's not any of the movement that goes on? You're still here. You witnessed all your births and all your deaths. But you didn't quite understand that you were the witness. So they often say that, O dreamer awake, you must. From dreams awake, from bonds be free, know the truth, thou art he, thou art she. Uditasta jagrata prapya varoni bodhata. Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Wake up from all dreams and become ever awake. Get the insomnia of yoga, as Lex Sixon, our founder, used to say. He said, I have the insomnia of yoga. I was telling people recently at the prison that my teacher, I always went by his room, and when I was visiting him at his center, and his body would be sleeping, but sometimes he'd even be talking, and the talk was wisdom. He's like teaching in the dream. Taught outside, he taught inward. Later on, I started having the same experiences. So you pretty much begin to connect waking and dreaming and realize that the mind never sleeps. Some misguided yogis will say, oh, I think I'm going to not sleep ever. It's like saying, I'm not going to eat, I'm going to fast. And Krishna says in the Gita, but yoga isn't for one who sleeps too little, or eats too little, or sleeps too much, or eats too much. It's middle path. It's moderation. We just chanted that at the beginning of this class. So you're going to want to have that middle way and that moderate appetites and so forth, but it doesn't mean that you can't realize that the soul never sleeps, that God never sleeps. When you apply it to yourself, your Atman never sleeps. Your mind can become so awake that it will never sleep too. It doesn't require rest, but your body will require rest. Your senses will require rest. The prana there at that level needs revivification. But the psychic prana, once it's awakened, it doesn't. Everything sleeps in deep sleep, but the prana remains awake, the scriptures say, like a hawk in its nest, you see, waiting for everything else to wake up, or go and wake it up when it's ready, you see. So there's this divine energy, and that's why we chant Te, Dhyan, Yoga, Nugata, Pasyan, Devatma Shaktim Svagunayar Nagudam. Devatma Shaktim is in everything, the divine energy is in everything, everywhere. So I'm just saying there's a lot in this process that isn't on a piece of paper. Oh, for an ounce of practice, right? So come to know it intellectually and see it in your mind, envision it, and then practice it, spend some time. Well, let's go into that down here. Well, there's the three origins, you see. There are Prakritis and Vikritis in yoga, they're called. Ahamkara to Buddhi to Mahat, cosmic mind. That is really the opposite way, but if you're going outside in, like this chart is doing, then you're going in that direction. You would come across the Ahamkara, hopefully you'll ripen that little piece of work, and then you'll come across the Buddhi, the discriminative intelligence, and then you'll with that get to the Mahat, the cosmic mind. Now, the three origins are there, and you meditate upon each via these points. Its origin, that is, each of these have an origin, so you want to trace them back to their source. Effect to cause, that cause to its effect, that effect to its cause, and so forth. Now, its qualities, its attributes, and its characteristics. So, if I were to advise you, you say start with water, you're going to want to say, how many oceans are there in the world? How many rivers? What's the quality of water? It satisfies my thirst. It can also drown me. You go on and on with everything you can think of about water, and that's a part of your meditation, you see. And then you connect it to your sense of taste. Without water in the tongue, you wouldn't be tasting anything. So you must take advantage of these. These are bullet points I've gathered out of the sutras of yoga. See. Third is its consistency and its content. What does it consist of, and what's its content? Water. That is. So you're looking at that on all levels. If you want to think of it as food, water is food, right? Apo va'anam, we say in the puja, and we take a flower petal and we throw it in there. So earth is in water, and water is a kind of food. Whenever water comes, it nourishes food. By rain, food grows. All beings are happy, the Gita says. So water is also food. So don't forget that as you look into its attributes, characteristics, consistency, and content. Now you can go on. So you've kind of taken the outer part of this, run it through your mind, come up with a few new insights maybe, and made a few connections that weren't there before, or at least brought consciousness into the whole matter, see. Now you can start looking for origins of origins. That is, how do all these things appear in my waking state, and how do they change when they pass into dream? And this is where you're probably somewhere there, at the tanmatras. You know that touching is different than tangibility. In other words, what I used to say about this is, that eyes have a power to see, and tongue has the power to taste, and ears have a power to hear, and without those, the senses are nothing. Cut the optic nerve, it's open but not seeing, so there's an energy going to all of these. And this is how you're beginning to trace the prana and the tanmatras, the subtle elements, the subtle senses. You'll find a lot of disconnects there, you see. A lot of things that most people aren't even thinking about because they don't have an internal life yet. These are what's blocking an internal life. It's what's causing people to say, our dreams are just a figment of our imaginations. When other people are having visions of Muhammad in jewel palaces, you see, in their dreams. You should see how the Sufis dream. They dream in Technicolor. They see Muhammad almost every night in their dream, you see. So some people are not aware, and other people are moving in. They're open. Their channels are open to these experiences. Not that dream visions are the highest thing. Like I say, sometimes they can be a little bit deterring, you see, from the main point. You get to the Father to the Son. So, oh, Muhammad, I'm so glad I'm seeing you. Is this a dream? Yes, you can move past me now, you see. They see the Buddha on the road, kill him, you see, because they don't want the Buddha's form. Buddha doesn't want his form, you see. So you're missing the point here, You don't cling to the feet of an avatar because he's a savior. He's an exemplar, and you take his teachings and you move inward to the goal, where he is, you see, where he is gone. So in India, we don't use our realized souls as saviors. We use them as exemplars. And we don't use them as doormats. We use them as doorways. See? So you don't get stuck anywhere in this process. So as you're looking into the appearance of all 25 of these, or let's say 20 of them, then you're beginning to look at their appearance in waking and in dreaming. So you're connecting waking to dreaming. Waking, you think, I already know that. Do you? Are you drinking water consciously? Are you taking food consciously? See? When you go out in nature, are you looking at it and getting hypnotized by its beauty? Or are you Dalai Lama who looks at a tree and says, oh, that's the illusion tree? See? And behind it is the swirling particle tree. That's the real tree. And everyone says, oh, yeah, I think I can understand that through my quantum physics now. So I'm illumined, right? No, you haven't seen the Buddha nature tree yet. That's behind the swirling particle tree. That's the treeness of the tree. That's the deep sleep tree. See, the seed. And now you're coming close to the secret of creation. Shrishti Rahasya, the Tantricists knew from inside out everything comes, but it didn't get caught out there. See? It turned and it moved back in series of fives because it had meditated on all of these on the way out. It'd be like getting lost in a hike, right? You take, I'm going to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, and so you find yourself somewhere and you don't know where, you see. So you want to go back, but you didn't take any landmarks on the way. You see. You didn't watch, you see, for things that can let you go back. So, or allow you to return to the source. So that's what it is for the soul to come out into nature. You need to be aware of your birth process and your death process and so forth. So that's a big point to talk about, but let's move on. They want you to immediately take stock of its changing nature. Everything is mutable in this set of 25. Everything is mutable, even cosmic mind. So you're going to want to find that out, and you may lose track of that here when you start looking at waking and dreaming. You may think, oh, I've made the connection between the A and U of Om, and that's it. You see, I've got it. But you haven't gone to the most remote of all causes, which would be deep sleep. So you don't know what formlessness is like. This is a problem with our culture. We don't have a non-dual philosophy, and we don't have any knowledge of formlessness, of our formless nature. We're so attached to nama, rupa, desha, kala, nimitta, name, form, time, space, and causation. And very few of us are moving beyond that. We have a death grasp on the atomic particle, and we won't let go. Abhinivesha, he called it, the father of yoga, clinging to life, clinging to things that are ephemeral and finite, you see. So we might get stuck there, you see. But if we go on to realize that everything is changing, then we'll develop an ability, or a desire at least, to find out something that's unchanging. See? Now deep sleep is that, in a sense, because the seeds are in abeyance, as they say. All seeds to this are held in abeyance. You'd have to think of the tip and the bulk of the iceberg to understand that. The tip is everything out here that we know. Everything that can be categorized, written down, inspected by science and biology and so forth. That's the tip of the iceberg, but it's connected to the bulk, and the bulk is invisible to us. And the bulk is huge and vast. And that's your deep sleep state and your dream state, and how the tip is existing is by its bulk, you see. So when you think of it that way, then you want to plumb the depths of the ocean and find the bulk and examine it, and then you're starting to get to this level of deep sleep. The third level of your consciousness, or the M of Om, A-U-M. And now you're beginning to introduce yourself to formlessness. And formlessness feels very welcome to you, because you know in deep sleep you feel mighty fine, you see, and come out of that in a state of newfound peace. So this examination of the third level of your consciousness, or the third world, every morning we chant, give us pure love, pure knowledge, pure devotion, and protect the three worlds, you see. Bhur Bhuva Swaha. All right, something said about that. Now, next, its place in the mind and thoughts. Now you have to connect it to this final set of 4 or 5 there. In order to realize that the mind is the projector of everything, that the mind has the power to congeal thought into earth, or thought into water, or thought into air, or thought into ether. That's why the body is one ether, that there are other ethers inside of you, because the mind is creating them. One of them is called the ancestors. 7.3 billion souls here on earth now, the latest count, I heard. But how many billions of ancestors are there? And where are they? See, we have a source to our bodies, see, and to our senses and so forth. And that's all heredity and genealogy and all that kind of happy stuff, and neuropeptides in the brain and all the stuff they're trying to attribute to the intelligence that finally visits man later in the game, you see. When it was there at the very beginning, and had a subtle version of everything that's out there already formulated in its cosmic mind. Everything came out of cosmic mind. So here you're approaching that cosmic mind, and you're also coming to understand the connection between the humans, animals and insects, and that world, that ether with the ancestors. Probably between the ancestors and the humans are these elementals, they call them. Nagas and Naginis and nature spirits and that kind of thing. Sometimes they call it the nether world or the interspace. So examining the mind, you'll find those kingdoms of heaven within. And then you'll examine the thoughts too. yoga chitta vritti nirodha, the vrittis, the thoughts, the vibrations. You'll want to dissolve them, see where they come from, and be able to dissolve them back into the state of yoga. A lot to be said about there too. So many teachings, probably better reserved for a retreat on the subject. Now, the next bullet point there is its power and hold over the mind. Its means each one of these. See, waters hold over the mind, fires hold over the mind, breathings hold over the mind, thoughts hold over the mind. You have to go through them all and see, simultaneously you're affirming that these are in the mind. So as you're doing that, you're affirming that all of this came out of the mind via these fives. See? You can't have any doubt about that anymore, but when a whole society, 7.2 and several millions of people, are telling you the opposite, but you've heard this ancient wisdom from the realized souls, who are not doctors who are curing your diseases, who are not lawyers that are litigating your court cases, who are not ancestors that are endearing you to Maya. But you're hearing it from a seer who has practiced and realized all the way back to the source, this three-tiered, 24-roomed castle of the Father, you see, with its 7 centers. And so you hear this and you begin to go against the tide, you see. You begin to work against the grain and march to the beat of a different drummer, as they say. And you begin thinking and entertaining that in the mind. But to prove it to yourself, you're going to have to affirm along the way that all of this has come out of your mind. One of the things that will allow you to do is release God from all praise and blame. God isn't in this mess. This is all the mind, at the collective and individual level. And you can throw in the cosmic mind there, but if you reach the cosmic mind, you'd be having very beautiful experiences. Those are your dream visions. Those are, the realms of the bodhisattvas and jivan muktas and Ishvara and the borders of Om itself, the Word. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. You're there with the God-centered, the God-oriented, and there's really no problem there except how can I use that to get into formlessness if I want to go the distance, you see. In the meantime, how much power and hold do each one of these things have over me, and how can I let them go effectively? Now, to put it all into perspective for us as practitioners or as people interested in the Dharma, some of this has been accomplished by you already. It's not like you have to go back and labor every little thing. People often ask me that. You've given me the mantra and told me to meditate on Sri Ramakrishna or, do a little formless meditation. Do I really have to do all this too? See? So people of this day and age, particularly in the West, probably not. But if you want to uncover every rock and look under every crevice and so forth for anything that's haunting you, that is, if you don't feel enlightened yet, if you don't feel illumined, if you don't feel free, or put it this way, if you feel like there's limitations in the body, energy, mind, intellect, ego sheaths, then do an inspection and take up what manner of practice is going to help that particular area. But sort of like, one big bubble and a lot of little bubbles around it, as Ramakrishna used to say. People are pecking away at the little bubble, and having a little light. But if they could get to that big bubble and pierce it, all these others would disperse, you see. So you've got one main issue somewhere lurking here. Probably it is the desire to take a body. That's how Vishishta puts it. There is, and Father of Yoga too, and the Father of Vedanta, Vedavyas, has said that, there's a primal desire for people to get embodied. And, of course, they think this is not necessarily a wise choice. That's why they are themselves going into disembodied states all the time, and they're conversant with non-dual reality, Advaita. Buddha nature, Pragyaparam, Atman, Brahman, Paramashiva, Mahavishnu, Mahashakti. They're conversant with these higher atmospheres, higher ethers, but they're also conversant with the lower ones, you see. They can go up and down the amber stairs of birth and death at will, said Sri Aurobindo. So knowing this, you find something in there that's hanging you up, and you meditate on it, and you bring light to it, and you let it go. It's pretty much that simple. And you might have to, if it's a particular persnickety little thing that's in your karmas or in your samskaras, you're going to want to find it and put some attention on it. That's why, a month's inspection, or 2 months, or 3 months, or 6 months of this, you'll find the one thing that's really hanging you up, and you might want to spend another 6 months getting rid of it. Because that could be the big bubble, the straw that broke the camel's back. The whole house of cards of Maya can come falling down, and now I'm ever awake, you see. There might have just been that small a thing hanging you up from higher realization. It's a very exciting thought, isn't it? Because a lot of this can seem very, preponderant and slow process. And our practice is, general and gradual and slow, by stages. And as Americans, that's particularly difficult because we want the quick fix. You see, we've been geared towards that, taught about that. Oh, you can do it, success and all that. But in spiritual life, the fruits are different. And the results of them are going to come back at the right time. It's called auspicious timing. Om Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarvata Shadake. So this awakening of spiritual energy that the Taittiriya Upanishad has talked about in its early chapters is this awakening of Kundalini, and she has her own timing for that. See? And you have to be patient about it. There are beautiful songs by Sri Ramakrishna's devotees about that. Manavarana Shashana Ankushahe Naratrana Tari Hari Chakshushahe Guna Gana Parayana Deva Gane Guru Deva Daya Kara Dina Jane. Kula Kundalini Guma Panjaka He Hredi Daya Hredi Granti Vidarana Karaka He Mama Manasa Chanchala Ratradine Gurudeva Daya Karadina Jane. Beautiful stotram, if you will, or bhajan written by Devendranath Mazumdar, one of Sri Ramakrishna's and Swamiji's, one of those disciples, or called householder disciple, who wrote this beautiful verses in Sanskrit. And basically what he's saying there, you heard the word Kundalini, I imagine, and you're saying, O Lord, it is by austerities offered to thee that the mind comes under control. You embody yourself on earth to show us the way. Even the gods and goddesses praise thee with divine hymns. O divine teacher, kindly bestow compassion on thy humble devotee. Guru Deva Dina Kara Dina. And then he goes on saying, the powerful spiritual force at the base of the spine awakens at thy touch. And the bondage of desire disappears when you grant detachment and discrimination. But my mind remains restless despite these blessings. O divine teacher, kindly shower compassion on thy humble devotee. So, when that spiritual energy at the base of the spine awakens, then it's quite often by the touch of the Guru. If it's not the actual hand on the heart or the head, like, say, Arjuna got in the Gita, that beautiful touch which showed him the cosmic form, which he wasn't quite ready for, but nonetheless he saw what was beyond the physical limitations of the first 15 of these tattvas that he was operating under. But touches can come another way. It can come in a dream. It can have a dream about your guru or about a profound teacher. Meet them in the body too, and so forth. So there are other ways in which this happens to you. But when that happens, this powerful energy at the base of the spine awakens. And so we're putting that in the context, you see, of Taittiriya Upanishad and yoga, Kundalini yoga and yoga, and what their connection is, even hundreds of years apart, thousands of years apart even. Because the yoga has already been there, but the systematized form of it came to us through Patanjali in about a century and a half after Christ. But that was only one of his incarnations. Patanjali had other incarnations which he was teaching yoga. And in fact, his next incarnation was as the teacher of Shankara. Father of yoga got reborn as Govindapada, who is the disciple of Gaudapada, the great non-dualist. And then Shankara left home at 12 and went wandering and found Govindapada in a cave that had caved in, cleared the cave, and then sat down. Are you my teacher? And so Govindapada came out of his samadhi and started teaching Shankara things that he needed to hear. So that was the father of yoga's next incarnation, some 500 years later. What they say, every 500 years a great soul like that comes. So some little known facts about father of yoga. If you could, again, as I said, see how souls move in and out, and when they did so, and for what reason they did so, then this eye would be open. The prana would be, food would be connected to the prana to the psychic prana to Mother Shakti, and her to Kundalini. See? So, what is the power and hold of these 25 or 24 cosmic principles over your mind? Keep those nadis open, see, so the energy is always flowing. Now, finally, it's disappearance in deep sleep. Here's where you begin to bridge the formless. You've had inklings of it before in your practice, but now you're beginning to cut your teeth on the fact that you have a formless essence. And you've probably heard it in the scriptures and talked about it with your friends and with other members of the Sangha. And you've probably taken on a mental asana that said, this self is Brahman or whatever. And you've tried your best to raise yourself up to that level of very subtle level of enlightenment or realization or illumination, samadhi, moksha, whatever you want to call it. But now you're being called upon to raise your consciousness to that level, maybe beyond levels. So the three worlds are beginning to sort of disappear, but the third world, deep sleep, is still very much in the picture, because you have to really ensure yourself that all of these things that you've been inspecting from outside in are connected to a source, and that source would be the seeds in deep sleep. Senses to matter in the first world, second mind to thought, right? Third world, seeds to seed essences. All the objects in deep sleep have come. All the objects here have come out of objects in deep sleep. Now you're making that full connection, and guess what? You find out that the whole thing is inside of you. Sufis have a nice saying about that. They say, when I connected all my knowledge, all the branches of my knowledge to the tree of realization, then I found out that the entire tree was inside of myself. So in the meantime, you're thinking, these are outer practices, where I'm getting knowledge, and it's all external, see. But then you find out eventually that all of this is inside of you. This is the true you that's coming forward. It's what you always hear about. Father of Yoga put it in 7 laws of spiritual life. The second is, all knowledge lies within you. It's sort of like Christ telling John, all the kingdoms of heaven are within you, you see. So this has to be ascertained and affirmed, confirmed, if you want to. And then you'll know how everything spills out and moves back in. Then you can move with it. with the least amount of impediment, you see, flowing. Om yata nadyaha shandamanaha samudre ashtam gachanti namarupa vihaya tata vidvan namarupad vimuktihi parat param parusham, supreme self, upuiti divyam, which is divine. See? It means may we always never be like mighty rivers flowing into the sea, losing all sense of name, form, and identity into that ocean of absolute reality. So in one sloka, the Upanishad states, see about that, Mundaka Upanishad, I think, states that may we always be like mighty rivers flowing into the sea. That's been there in Vedic ideology from way, way back, you see. All rivers flow to the sea. All paths lead to the mountaintop, you see. So in that regard then, you must notice how everything gets dissolved into deep sleep, and you fall out in your everyday life with that. You just go into deep sleep and give up. And you come out, and the first thing you're aware of is a good dream or a bad dream. Occasionally maybe a visionary dream, and some quotidian dreams. They call those the 1,000 imbecilities of the mind in Vedanta. So you're having stupid dreams, and you think, well, I must be stupid then, see, because you're having all these really poor dreams. But that's just before you wake up. You see, you've come through the very lowest levels of the mind to get to the waking state. So you're picking up all this flotsam and jetsam from the thoughts of collective humanity, bringing some of it with you. Just make sure that those aren't your own, too. Abandon those. You'll have to go through them. That's like Yudhishthira was the most dharmic man on earth, Arjuna's oldest brother. Yudhishthira of the Pandava brothers, but he told one white lie during his life, so he wanted to get into the highest state, and the Lord told him, because of your one white lie, you have to go through hell on the way to the highest state. You don't have to go to hell, but you have to go through hell. So Yudhishthira had to visit all the patalas inside in these lower levels of consciousness, see how all beings suffer, you see. Under their own auspice. They suffer because of their own ignorance. So make sure that you move through those things, but don't identify with them. And then allocate your consciousness to deeper and deeper levels in practice. Here's one. Here's one you can do. Might want to get a teacher and bounce off a lot of what happens to you when you do this practice. This is really akin to dissolving the mind stream practice. Some of you have already been doing it, and there's a book in SRV out on that. Well, good. We finished that entire chart, even with its slokas. So a good one to bring up with lessons 7, 8, and 9, which we also did last week, but now we've really fleshed them out and shown you how earth is established in water, water is established in fire, fire is established in air. The very same things they're saying here. Only Father of Yoga's more modern take on it, you see, more contemporary. 140 BC is pretty recent for India, you see. Tomorrow then we will take lesson 10, 11, 12. We'll finish. And I have a few of the charts that we first took up in the Taittiriya Upanishad about connections and vyahritis, they're called, and abur bhuva swaha. Those are the teachings we will visit tomorrow again in the conclusion of our study on the Taittiriya Upanishad. Then I'll give you the t-shirt. I survived the Taittiriya Upanishad study with Babaji Bob Kindler for a year and a half or two. We take ourselves through it every Saturday and Sunday. We get together as much as we can, and when I'm not here, I'm doing it in Hawaii at my home, so you can watch those live streaming on Sundays. On Sundays. Beware of the Maya of time change. So you're there at the right time. So here, let's end with a chant. Om Tat Snayo. Om Tat Snayo Ravrinni Mahe Gatum Yagyaya Gatum Ye Nupataye Daivi swastarastu naha swastir manushebhyaha urdhvam jigatu besajam samnoastu dvitare samchatushpate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we make a complete and selfless offering of all into the Great Self. May we always revere the Lord and Mother of all sacrifices, and may we always delight in this offering. May divine blessings come to us. May peace be unto the entire human race. May healing, well-being, and prosperity then all come to us. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.